Your relationship with your body is the longest relationship you will ever be in. You must have unconditional permission to eat in order to make peace with food. What is your self-talk like about your body? If you wouldn't say that to a loved one about their body, what makes it okay to say it to yourself? This is a safe virtual space where we are going to dig into deep heart-to-heart convos that all come back to our relationships with food and body. Welcome back to another episode of the Find Food Freedom podcast. Today, I am so glad that I'm joined with Maya Rizkala, one of the incredible dietitians on the Find Food Freedom team. So Maya, thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited for this conversation that was sparked by you and your desire to kind of get this information out there. So before we jump into the meat of today's episode, I would love for you to intro. I know we've done episodes before with you on Find Food Freedom, but I would love for you to intro who you are and a little bit about why you're passionate about today's topic, and anything else you think would be important to know.
I am a Lebanese American dietitian. It's funny. I'm usually I go directly into that and
let me give you my elevator pitch.
Yeah. But now that the topic is about Lebanon, I think I've gotten nervous in a way that I haven't before when talking about different things. Maybe because it's just it's very close to home. It is home. So yeah, I grew up around food, really passionate about food in the kitchen, cooking with my family and enjoying food, both in the United States and then in the summers where I would spend my time in Lebanon visiting family. And that's where my passion for food and nutrition developed. Went on to be a dietitian, and now I'm so happy to be here, part of the Find Food Freedom team.
And who are the clients that you most like to serve? And what are the topics you love most in session with clients?
I think recently I've been, I love working with all people. And recently, I think the question of what brings someone to an intuitive eating dietitian has come up. Why me? Why now? Because there are so many options right now, especially with GLP-1 agonist medications. It's almost, feeling that, people could have just not chosen to see me and maybe just go on the medication and try and lose weight, but they chose to work with me. And I've heard people say that what has drawn them to me is my background and how I'm open with sharing about my Lebanese American heritage and where that shows up in diet culture, because they find that their cultures clash with their recovery.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that here. And I'm excited to get into today's conversation. So first off, I have to ask, how many summers did you spend in Lebanon? Was that every year growing up, or how often did you travel over there?
It was pretty much every summer. And I actually lived there like right after I was born for 3 years. So I don't remember it much, but yes, my parents actually had considered just living there and raising me there, but chose instead the US.
Okay. And we were but thank you for sharing your conversation with your mom, which we will integrate into today's episode, some of those clips. But hearing your mom's story about how she came over here when she was 21, but she spent most of her life in Lebanon and France for a year. I love hearing about people's stories, and it's just so interesting. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Of course. Yeah, I wanted to give space for her story. And that's what I think the thread is. That's what keeps people coming back to intuitive eating, is that like we really give space for their story. I do have clients on GLP-1 medications, and it's just an open conversation. I do want to point out that like if you are on a GLP-1 medication, you are welcome here. This is a place for you, and we can find our way through this together.
Thank you for stating that, because I think a lot of people think, oh, if I'm desiring weight loss, I can't do intuitive eating, or I can't touch intuitive eating, or I have to wait until I get to a certain point. And yeah, there's room for you at the table if you're listening. So one thing I do want to share first is we're going to insert a clip here of you and your mom speaking of the culture around food, not only in Lebanon, but she talked about a time that she traveled to Italy and her experience out at the restaurant. So we're going to input that here.
Food plays a central role in Lebanese culture. Everything happens around food. We sit at the table, and it's not just about eating. It's we're spending time together, and food is a way to spend time together. So a Sunday lunch can take 4 hours. And because there's all kinds of conversations happening at the table. One thing that struck me recently when we went to Italy last summer, I noticed that in Italy, just like in Lebanon, just like in France, actually, because I'm learning about French culture as well, the waiter will never, ever come to you and say, "Are you ready for the check?" Which is how we do things in the United States. They will never, ever do that. That's it. They will wait until, the customer calls them and says, "Can I have the check?" So that says it all. That says that, when people are sitting around the table, this is sacrosanct. You cannot interfere with that. It's not just that they finished it's not about them finishing their food and you come and take the plate and bring the check. There's a lot more happening than just food. And you have to respect that. You have to absolutely respect that. And I love that. I absolutely love that. I grew up that way. So that it's not just the food. It's what's everything else that happens around food.
Yeah. What is so impactful about that, you think?
Food is nourishment, physical nourishment, but then conversation and human interaction is equally nourishing. And both of these things are happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And of course you can have bad conversations, but the human interaction is equally important to the food. It's just as important as the food.
Yeah, it's this beautiful, beautiful experience of eating.
A fundamental human experience. And it's not just about putting food in your mouth to nourish your body. It's about enjoyment. It's about interacting with the other people who are sitting with you and eating with you. It's so much more than just eating.
I mean, this was just so mind-blowing because as someone who's 50% Greek, I've been to Greece a couple of times. Like, it's so true that I feel like America has lost the plot when it comes to food and like what food is used for. So I would love to hand it over to you to like how stark the differences were even for you growing up of seeing food in Lebanon and then like seeing it in America. What were the differences that you took note of and just anything that's coming to mind?
The food itself was different. like the produce in Lebanon just tastes different, right? It's a different climate. What we have access to is different. So that was special in and of itself. There's a lot of fresh food in Mediterranean cuisine, as you know, being Greek, because the produce is just so good. So that was really exciting to be part of. And I just found that it wasn't as obvious in the US, probably purely because of the climate. Growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, maybe it's different, in other states. So that was one piece, and the traditions and history behind the food is big, right? United States is a young country. Lebanon has been, just that region has been around for a long time. So there are very old practices around food. And I actually went a few years ago to Lebanon, to a small village in this valley in Lebanon, where I got to see them use a lot of old traditional methods for making labneh, which is this like cream cheese kind of spread, and different like jams, jarring methods. And it was just really cool to see these ancient techniques being used. So that's really special in the culture. And then beyond that is the familial, social aspect of food, where we sit down, as my mom talked about, for hours and hours. And there's no rush. And I think that was one of my favorite parts of the conversation I had with my mom, because that is so special. This is a fast moving world that we're in, and to be able to just sit down and have someone look at you and say, like, take your time. I want to listen to what you have to say. There's no rush. It's a luxury to be able to do that. It's a privilege. And that's something that I think we do a really good job at in the Middle East.
Yes, that was one of my favorite parts of listening to your conversation, of how waiters and waitresses and servers in America will be like, okay, are you ready for the check? But over in Italy, and same thing. I remember being in Greece, and my yaya was like almost appalled at us, like of how myself and my friend who came with me at the time, we were like, I don't know, freshmen in college probably, of just like how we were out to eat versus how they were, because I didn't grow up like going over there. But mealtime is like sacred and special, and it's everything. It's tradition, it's culture, it's family. It's the thing that your mom really touched on, that it's physical nourishment, but it's human interaction. And she said that's just as important as the food. And I thought that was really, really powerful.
Yeah, it's really powerful, especially, to kind of transition into some of the other things we'll talk about, especially when there's this like stark difference between what's happening maybe behind the scenes when we step away from the table in Middle Eastern culture, and how isolating that experience can be.
Yes. So I would love to definitely bridge these conversations. So it makes sense for our listeners. Right here, we will clip in a little bit of your mom's story and what she shared with us with an eating disorder that she struggled with. And it was so interesting to hear too that she didn't know how to categorize that eating disorder at first too. So we'll drop that in here, and then we'll continue our conversation.
Very, very meaningful experience happening with food. And we do know that there is disordered eating in the Middle East. And I decided to do a little bit of research because I was curious to see what was out there, because we can speak from our personal experience, and it's interesting to see what else there is. So not a lot, as you may not be surprised to hear. There was not a lot of research done, especially more, recent research, but I did find some. So I thought I'd share a 2020 Journal of Eating Disorders article mentions the prevalence of eating disorders has been assumed to be low in the Arab world due to the alleged absence of the quote unquote thin ideal, like this pursuit of thinness. Yeah, you're shaking your head.
That is not true.
Yeah.
That is not my experience. That is not my experience.
Tell me more about that.
I think the thin ideal was definitely there when I grew up. Mm-hmm. One of the first things, if you were away and then came back, or if you hadn't seen someone in a long time, one of the first things, if not the first thing that they will say to you is, oh, you've put on weight, or, oh, you've lost weight. They will comment about your weight. That will be one of the first things that they will comment on if they haven't seen you in a long time. And they have no problem doing that. And if they told you you lost weight, generally that's a positive thing. They're trying to say that this is something good. You've lost weight. If you've put on weight, that's usually something negative, unless there was, you were extremely thin and you put on weight, or
right, which is all subjective.
Which is all subjective.
Yeah.
So weight is one of the first things people will comment on when they haven't seen you in a long time. Your weight.
Yeah, it's arguably a big part of conversations.
Yeah.
In the Arab world. So it's interesting that was maybe an assumption that had been made. And then, it does mention in the article that the Arab world is undergoing rapid sociocultural changes, and there are reports of an increase of the desire to be thin. Sure. I mean, I guess maybe, maybe there's increased awareness. Maybe there's, just as, diet culture continues to evolve in the Western world, it's going to continue to evolve everywhere else too. So that's interesting to see. And there's an additional study that I found that I was curious to hear your thoughts on. And it's from 2017 Community Mental Health Journal. This was research conducted on outpatient eating disorder clinicians. So I like to emphasize it's outpatient. We're not getting the inpatient data. In Lebanon in particular, through questionnaires and focus groups, their results showed that the most prevalent eating disorder was actually bulimia, with 46.1%, followed by anorexia, 39.4%, and then binge eating, 14.4%. How does that information sit with you? And is there anything surprising? And would love to hear just your thoughts as to why there may be some of that disordered eating in Lebanon.
Well, I've had firsthand experience with bulimia. I don't know actually if it's what I had was bulimia or binge eating. I don't know the exact definitions, but it's one of these. Yeah, I suffered from that growing up. Mm-hmm. It was a very restrictive food environment. I was never thin. I was always a little plump, but I was not overweight or obese. And but yet I was treated as if I was overweight and obese. And the more my family restricted my food, the more I wanted to eat. Mm-hmm. And then throw up the food. So I don't know if that's binge eating or bulimia. Mm-hmm. Definitely, it was emotional eating.
Yeah. And you experienced it firsthand. And I think part of what stood out to me in this statistic is that a lot of times anorexia is talked about more as like the more quote unquote stereotypical eating disorder, or the one that's more severe. But here we have, evidence showing that bulimia was the more common one. And that's with, there are a lot of issues with diagnostic criteria in eating disorders. So I care less about the names. And, we can say bulimia is when there is an act of like binge eating and then purging. So like kind of forced extraction of the food.
Oh, that's bulimia. Bulimia is when there is a lot of eating and then purging. Mm-hmm. That's bulimia. Okay, so then that's what I had.
Yeah. So there's also anorexia there's also anorexia purging, where like you restrict, and there's a lot of different things. Like you restrict, and then you purge, even without binging.
Okay.
And binging is also very subjective too. So the whole point is we care for the whole person, right? As opposed to a behavior,
Yeah. So my family had a doctor come to see me, and he didn't mention anything. I think, that was, I'm 64, and that was when I was a teenager. So that's 40 years ago. I think there was very little understanding of eating disorders. So I don't blame that doctor for not understanding what was going on, because I think they knew so little.
And still do, cough, cough.
Yeah, I know.
It's progressed, but yeah.
Yeah. I know doctors don't have a lot of understanding of nutrition in general. So anyway, my family got me diet pills to take. I went into every possible diet. I would come up with all kinds of things that I read about, like eat nothing but apples, or eat nothing but eggs, or eat nothing but milk. And I would do that for days. Mm-hmm. And then I would get sick of it. Mm-hmm. I've done it all. I've been through it all.
Right.
And it was a very solitary journey, completely solitary journey. I never spoke to anybody about it. Mm-hmm. The only reason I told my parents that there was something wrong was because I was purging. And I felt that was not right. Yeah. And I needed to say something.
Yeah.
But afterwards, nothing, I didn't get any help or understanding. And then after that, I didn't mention anything to anyone. And I continued my own journey with food.
So Maya, I would love to kind of hear from you. In the Middle East culture, I forget exactly how you said it, but like when you step back from the table, or like what's going on behind closed doors, any light you can shed on that? Or I know when you had spoke to your mom, there was some research also related to eating disorders in Lebanon specifically that you had referenced. So anything that's coming up from you and then for you, and then we'll just kind of take it from there.
So when I talk with clients, these clients who maybe have chosen to work with me because of the background, sometimes what they'll share is that, like it seems like I might understand. And I think that's really big when we're talking about other cultures outside of the United States, is I don't know that the attention to eating disorders is as clear. I'm not an expert in like all, where eating disorders, treatment shows up all over the world. And it, at least for the places that I have been to, including Lebanon, it doesn't seem to have as much awareness. And so I think that's where things can get a little weird, right? We are, and I reached out to people when kind of preparing for this podcast to see where has diet culture touched their lives in Lebanon and just like in their cultures. And one of my friends mentioned kind of just getting like tips and tricks in college for basically how to have an eating disorder. And maybe that would get more attention and red flags showing up in the US, but in Lebanon, it's like very normalized.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So and I had said this to you off air, but I thought it was so interesting to hear you and your mom speak so openly about her story and everything. So, I mean, I would even think, knowing your mom, who's in her 60s, I believe she said, like, I'm assuming even back then there was way less. I mean, like you said, there's already way less, it seems like, over there when it comes to resources and awareness. But back then, I mean, she mentioned that a medical doctor saw her and tried to give her diet pills. Mm-hmm. And it's just crazy to think about that lack thereof. So do you feel like that same thing rings true, if I'm hearing you correctly, with present day clients in different cultures, that if they're not from America, there's just less talk about eating disorder overall or across the board?
Yeah, definitely. There's this idea of like eating disorders are a skinny white girl problem. When in reality, when we look at the statistics, only 6% of people diagnosed with eating disorders are clinically, big air quotes, diagnosed as underweight.
Yes.
Right. And we know that people coming from other parts of the world may have different body sizes than that, like European body, including Lebanon. There tend to be, curves and body hair. So, it can be missed.
Yes. That term, I hate the term, but atypical anorexia, right? When it's like, why is it called atypical when it's actually more typical to reside in a larger body? But okay. Nevertheless, one thing that your mom had talked about, which I feel like both cultures, whether it be Lebanon and America, or if we take this worldwide, I feel like might, and I don't want to stereotype, but have in common, is this idea of when you don't see somebody for a really long time and then you see them and the first comment is on the body. Now, usually in America, I feel like people are like, oh my God, you look so good. What are you doing? But did your mom mean that even in the opposite, where like in Lebanon, if you don't see someone for a really long time and their body got larger, is that something that they would comment on? Or is it only in this idea, heavy air quotes, of like complimenting weight loss?
It was both. It'll be in your face. I mean, I can also only speak from my experience. But I do remember my mom, like, just kind of vague memories growing up of comments being made about my mom's body, and her response, like it was just in the background. So as a kid, I remember, oh yeah, people are going to ask me that when I'm an adult. Why did you gain weight? Why did you lose weight? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like I wrote down when you're talking like that dinner table talk. I feel like I remember in the Greek culture of just like commenting, whether it's on people's bodies or relationships or things that, like, when you think about, it's like, are we really talking about that in front of other people? Like now, and especially now with what you and I do, like, it's kind of crazy to think about that. But yeah, thinking about the message that sends to children or littles when it's like, oh, they're commenting on so-and-so's body. Oh, what does that tell little ears? Oh, well, it's okay to comment on people's body, or it's not okay to be XYZ size or whatever that may be. So I thought that was a really interesting takeaway. Do you, thinking about how you sit with clients and you support clients, I think so many of our clients have a similar experience where they'll recall something at a family gathering, right? Or a social event, that they'll never forget a moment that a comment was made about their body. anything you want to share or speak to, if people are listening to us speaking right now, listening to our conversation and like, oh my gosh, yeah, I relate to this so much. Like, what would you like to say to them, or how, anything coming up for you?
Around the table specifically?
Table specifically, or it could be cultural specific with that. Anything, truly.
Yeah. Well, something my mom brought up off air, I believe, was this demonization of bread. Like when Lebanese people go on diets, it's almost like a joke at this point that the first thing you take out is bread. And it's like, it's kind of funny, but also really sad, and points to a bigger problem. The foods that are demonized are foods that are not white people foods, right? Arabic bread, that's something we eat. Well, we call it Arabic bread, but like pita bread.
My
we
favorite.
eat that a lot. It's so good, right?
So fucking good.
And the Greek bread is really good too.
Yeah.
So like that's a vehicle for hummus. It's important. I need my bread.
It's a vehicle for everything. I feel like you can put all like the yummy like veggies in there and the cheeses and the Oh my gosh.
And like another like fun, like innocent memory of me when I was a kid, I would make bread sandwiches. I would take pita bread, open it up, cut it into little pieces. I don't know why I was doing this. It's like, why? But cut it into little pieces.
Fun.
Yeah, and just like roll it up and be like, yummy. A sandwich of bread. Because bread is life.
It is.
So bread is great. What am I talking about again?
No worries. You said food. The foods that were demonized were the not white people foods.
Exactly. Yes. See, my love for bread gets me carried away. So these foods were the first thing to like come off the table when a person is dieting. And I know like as a dietitian early in my career, I'm like wincing as I say this, but I would tell people from other cultures to like decrease or replace their traditional foods with like more stereotypically wellness culture foods, like your brown rice and your, quote unquote lean meats and things, when we know that all foods really do have a place in a well-rounded way of eating.
Yes. Yes. Do you follow Delina, your Latina nutritionist? If you do not, highly recommend anybody listening to this. She does a fantastic job of advocating for cultural foods and calling out the bullshit of how, we live in this elite wellness culture where, the first things to go, specifically, she talks more to the Latina community, but is like cut the cultural foods and just go right to the whitewashed wellness foods. And it's like that does not need to be a part of any nutritional guidance. And like you say, you cringe, but cringe means growth. And same, I cringe all the time about previous things that I would tell people. But we now being intuitive eating providers, like we know that all foods fit. And what a gift to be able to celebrate your cultural foods and include them and keep the recipes alive. And but I resonate so much with what you said of the cringe, of looking back of what I may or may not have told people from certain cultures. Just not knowing. It's crazy.
It's huge. And I wonder if you feel this layer to being Greek, because I think it disconnected me from my culture. There was a time, like speaking of lebne, which is a delicious like breakfast spread, for a long time I replaced it with plain Greek yogurt because of protein. Because protein and calories and blah blah blah. I'm being very silly, but like it really goes back to that, what I said, I think like the first time we did a podcast together, is that I lost a part of myself. When you don't eat intuitively, you can lose parts of yourself, and I did lose access to my connection with my Lebanese heritage.
Oh, wow. That is such a beautiful thing to say, and more so vulnerable, but thank you for sharing. And I think, yes, I relate to you. And it's such a great point to bring up, because I think cultural foods or not, but specifically cultural foods, when we diet, we are restricting, right? We're cutting out, we're taking away, whether that be the cultural foods or foods that you just genuinely enjoy, but for whatever reason, now think they're air quotes bad or shouldn't eat them, etc. But coming back to the cultural, yeah. I remember going to like Greek food festivals and thinking like, I shouldn't have, like the spanakopita or the baklava or like whatever that food was, that it was like, oh no, I can't have that. Like, or the opposite. I actually remember eating them in excess because I was like, oh, I never get to have these foods. I'm so bad, blah, 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 and feeling so physically unpleasant and guilty, when it's like, oh, if I could just go back now and allow myself to enjoy those foods. Well, which I do now currently, but I mean, in those moments, right? If you can't get those times back in those moments. So it's grieving that, what we've lost, for sure.
Definitely.
Do you have any memories of when you've gone back to Lebanon, when you were in your most disordered state of, whether it be eating disorder, disordered eating, that you like look back and it's like, and similarly, like, I know you use that specific example, but where you were trying to eat things that just now you look back and you're like, oh, if I could have just gone back to Lebanon and ate all of the amazing food. But do you have a lot of memories like that?
I do. There was one that came to mind where it was breakfast time, and a common thing in Lebanon is to get manouche. Are you familiar with that? Za'atar. Yeah. So it's like this flatbread with olive oil and za'atar mixed together, and we put it in like really hot. I'm not explaining this well. It's actually, whatever. It's this flatbread. And it's amazing, and it's a very traditional breakfast food in Lebanon.
Okay.
So it would be a nice kind of tradition to go in the mornings, and like someone would go to a bakery, and the bakeries would open early, and you see people just sitting out having coffee and for work and sitting together and eating their manouche. And then, get like a bunch of manouche, bring it home. And then we would all have that, all my cousins and I growing up. And I remember when I was in school to be a dietitian, and I was so proud of my quote unquote healthy eating habits. I was the only one who didn't participate. And I just sat there while everyone else was eating their manouche. And it was eating some like nasty plain oatmeal with who knows what in there. And I think on top of that, I think my family was like praising me for how healthy I was. And I was telling them like about how healthy I was. I was explaining, I was like, yes, I'm eating my oats because it's the way to do it. So again, it's that grief.
Yeah. Oh, it's like what I would give to go to a foreign country with you right now and just sip delicious coffee and eat fresh food from a bakery. Like, that's truly what life is all about. Like, but it just shows, how when you're so deep in it, how you can see the world so differently. But I think, our field, specifically the, field of dietetics, I think hopefully I say that we're coming a long way as a field where intuitive eating dietitians, health at every size dietitians that are focusing in cultural cuisines, like I feel like we're coming back to the all foods fit, mentality, and hopefully celebrating these foods. And so people from different cultures can hear this and recognize that if they have health-related goals, physical, mental, emotional, you can still eat your cultural foods, celebrate them, and still pursue health in a way, whatever that means to you. So for those listening who may be in a similar spot to that story you gave an example of, or feeling like I can't have X, Y, and Z because it's not the oats or the chia seeds or the non-fat plain Greek yogurt or, these healthified foods, what would you say to them?
I think a great place to start is what you said of what is health to you? What are your goals? What do you want out of your relationship with food? Because that's what it comes down to in the end. I have my experience, my journey with my Lebanese background and connecting to that. And that for me, that means eating the manouche, eating the desserts, eating all these wonderful things freely. And maybe it looks different for you. What are you wanting out of this? And like, how can, if you're working with a professional, how can they help you with that? And also, are there things in your culture that you want to connect with? Because like we talked about, health is so multidimensional. So this social health, emotional health, being part of a community that has been shown to be really good for humans. So that might mean going and having, a coffee and pastry with friends or family when you're not hungry at all, but because you feel like it and you want to connect with them. That's healthy. That's very healthy. It's very good for blood pressure and cholesterol, etc. So, I think it would be that. It's like, can we use your culture, if it feels okay, as a way to connect to what you're wanting out of your life and the nutrition work.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. And I think it's so evident that not only do you have the professional experience to support clients, from different cultures, but that lived experience too. Which I think is so, so important when supporting clients. So for anybody who is listening to this, if you click the link in the show notes below, you can get your insurance benefits checked and you can schedule with Maya using your health insurance benefits. Most people have no idea that they have these benefits. So please, 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 I encourage you to get them checked. And Maya, for anyone listening, final words that you want to leave them with today. If they don't remember anything else we said, but they're listening to this podcast and they're walking away, what would you like to leave them with today?
This quote comes to mind, and I'm going to paraphrase it probably. But I think, let me see if I can even
go ahead and just pull it on up.
Yeah.
Time.
Something about food, obviously. There we go. Okay. Looks like, Arabic proverb that says, it's so intense, which is a great way to end this because
perfect.
Middle Eastern knows that we are so dramatic. Whoever eats alone chokes alone. Oh yeah. Right. So the idea here is like, it's nice when we eat as a community. And let me tell you, let's be honest, right? When you're in your eating disorder, it's lonely, as my mom said. Like, I don't want to drive that home. It's lonely. Let's eat together and eat sweets and eat all the foods. And if someone is giving you shit for it, that is on them and not you. So eat together.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And yes, I feel like a lot of different cultures, at least I'm coming from the Greeks, as most people only know things about Greek from like my big fat Greek wedding, but we are also dramatic. So that was just a perfect way. And I'm going to absolutely echo you there at the end of anybody's thoughts and opinions on what you're eating or your body has everything to do with them and nothing to do with you. If you are listening here today, we got snaps from Maya on that one. Thank you for being here. And we will see you next week. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Find Food Freedom podcast. Every single time you listen to an episode, it truly makes our dreams come true, helping people make peace with food, body, and movement. If you have not already, please make sure to head over to social media and give us a follow at find.food.freedom on Instagram or Find Food Freedom on TikTok. And if you resonated with today's episode and want more professional support, please head over to findfoodfreedomresources.com. This is where you can get your benefits checked to see if your health insurance will fully cover that one-on-one nutrition counseling with our team. And we also have so many other virtual resources there. So again, that's findfoodfreedomresources.com for all things Find Food Freedom and to get those health insurance benefits checked. If you have not already, I invite you to rate, review, subscribe, like, share this podcast with anybody that you think needs to hear it. The more that you share this podcast, the more that this message of intuitive eating and food freedom will be out in the world, which we so desperately need. Again, thank you for being here. I cannot wait to chat with you again soon on the next episode of the Find Food Freedom podcast.